Now the big question is, from all these different regulatory requirements that businesses usually are met with, you sort of have to stack them. I know it's not an easy job. If you're a business, there's so many regulatory requirements in the EU, and you're like, okay, that one might be 3 years out, this one is next month, and then you prioritize them. And maybe in that timeline, 2 years seems like a very comfortable, long time, and still lots of time to prepare for the requirements of the battery pass. But I think time flies by rather quickly. And you might want to think about how you actually prepare for the battery pass requirements nowadays already. How do you put that project pipeline up? Who needs to be on board in your environment? And how can you take the lead? And that's something we'll answer in our final session today. And I'm very happy to hand over the session to our last moderator for today, the third moderator, Sophie Herrmann from Systemic. She's a partner and managing director Germany at Systemic and has a special focus on circularity and circular business models. So welcome on stage. Once again, we are very much looking forward to your questions on Slido, also by our online audience that has been participating very eagerly in the last 2 sessions. So send us your questions on Slido.
Thanks a lot, Zach. Yeah, very happy to moderate the last panel here. I think we heard quite a bit that the battery passport can be done. That's what this consortium showed. We also heard that it can create value. We heard that in the pitches. We heard that from the value assessment. But the question is very much how to go about. So I would like to get very practical in terms of what are the real challenges that economic operators or suppliers encounter, and how do we go about tackling some of these in the next, not even 2 years. So I would love to invite Dr. Franz Geier. I've seen you here before. He's the head of technology cluster of BMW, but very importantly, he's also the leader of the task force of DPP of ACEA, which is the European Automobile Manufacturer Association. This is a bit of origami here. Then I would like to also invite Pierluca Cialoni. Pierluca, he is regulatory officer at ACEM, and he's representing the motorcycle industry in Europe. Next we have Patrick Heininger. Welcome, Patrick. He's product manager at Smart Battery Solutions. And finally, Nils Steinbrecher, who I've also seen before. Welcome, Nils. He is Managing Director at SK Test Sustainable Battery Solutions. With this group, what I'm very happy to have a representation actually from everything from EV batteries to LMT, light means of transport. Yeah, I think we can say that at least that's what we would love you also to talk a bit about. To industrial batteries, to recycling. So quite a diverse representation of the different challenges and suppliers or economic operators of the battery types that the consortium has worked on. So I'm very happy to welcome you all here. And I would like to start with a very basic question to just ask, what do you think, how can the industry get proactive now and prepare for future data sharing requirements? I would love to invite each of you actually on that first question to give us your views of what is important now. Please, Franz, go ahead.
Many thanks. I think a lot has been said already today. And I'm a bit laughing if you say what we have to do now. It was already said that it's not about now. We as BMW, we at least work on it since 2017. And we are not there yet. But having a project like this really helps us. And we somehow see how to achieve the compliance on the battery passport. But what would you see as well is a lot of efforts to overcome in the SME sector. We see that there are a lot of participants being obliged to help us to be compliant without any benefit for themselves. Unless they do not see this benefit, I think we have a lot of challenges. And if we start now with an MVP for the first implementation of a battery passport and nominate our supply chain and will nominate in a few years different players, how can they get up to speed? I think this is a big effort that needs to be overcome. And a last one, because I have a few more colleagues to follow and have similar arguments maybe. And a last one is really, we need to look for the implementation on the need-to-know principle. So what is really needed from each participant of the supply chain out of a battery passport, that we implement it very smoothly, and that we implement the right data, and that we not provoke IP and GDPR topics to be showstoppers. Really, what is the need to know? And in this case, few parties need to contribute, which is not on the table yet. And this is something to overcome, which is not an easy one, but I think we can make it.
Thank you, Franz. Yeah, I think we had that earlier also in the policy discussion, this question of who actually gets access. Pierluca,
Yeah,
please.
thank you, Sophie. Thank you to the Battery Pass Consortium for the invitation. Just a clarification, as motorcycle users, motorcycle sector, we are downstream user for both light means of transport and also electric vehicle batteries. So coming back to the question, how we can prepare for the compliance with the battery passport. I would like to stress that it's primary, is essential to start a dialogue with the battery supply chain. Today, as vehicle manufacturer, we need to change on what today is understood as battery. Because today, as battery, we understand the concept of battery is just a physical good. But this will change with the battery passport, because there will be a consistent and primary part that will be not a physical good, it will be the information good. So it will be strategic and important to start a strong dialogue with the entire supply chain. It will be primary to start to understand which are the best practice and to harmonize the process that can be used even if you are going to change your supply. And lastly, let's say, as motorcycle sector, there are, except few, some cases, there are a lot of small and medium companies. For them, let's say, it's essential to understand which are the legal definition to be compliant, let's say, with the battery passport. So this will be important for the vehicle manufacturer to start to think, and also to start to think an interpretation of the legal definition until there will be, let's say, the final one from the harmonization process or from the policymaker, let's say.
And we heard also there's some work to do. Yes, please, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, as Gianluca just said, there is Pierluca, sorry. There is a first thing to do is really to say, okay, what is the perspective to speed up, and where do we have some time left? Because when we are thinking about repairability of small industrial batteries or NMT batteries, this won't be the thing to tackle with the current products that are in the market. But there are other things like the battery passport for products that will be still in the market in 2027, which we will have to tackle right now. So there is no time to really wait and check. It's the only thing that we have to check right now is what effort do we have to start with, and what time does it take us? And as Dark already said in his speech, a battery passport costs around 10 euros per battery. This might be a good amount of money if you're thinking about EV batteries, but if you're thinking about batteries that costs only less than 100 euros, 10 euros are much of a margin. So you have to calculate what it costs you today, because you are selling, you're developing products today for the market, and they will still be there in 2027. And there is no chance to change prices just because you obey to regulations that are already there. So all these question marks that were raised throughout the morning have to be crunched with numbers and really to be put into place. And even if there's still a question mark, you just have to raise that question mark to your customer and name it at least. So that's the minimum what you have to do. And one last thing, when we are talking about preparing software and battery management systems, you also have to think about the cybersecurity, as we talked already regarding the acknowledge of who is responsible for it and who is accountable for it. And the other thing is also, is it really secure in terms of the Cyber Resilience Act? Because this is also putting into, or was put into place before, and has to be really put into concern when talking about batteries communicating with the outer world all the times as long as they are active, to really enable the dynamic data update.
Thanks a lot. Please.
Yeah, last but not least, well, first of all, I want to take the chance to really thank this consortium, and especially Systemic, to make such a great battery pass. So I think we cannot say enough what they have done in this last 3 years, really amazing. So, and to see today at the end as a final, yeah, very happy of what you have achieved. A word to us first. Some don't know, right? We are part of a Korean consortium called SK. They also have SK Honors batteries. And we are part of the company who actually does battery recycling. We are a bit of a startup within a large company. So we also look, obviously, at how we optimize data collection, right? And on the other hand, while 27 is still a bit around, we work together with our colleagues of BMW here and already have to do track and trace on a daily basis just because our clients want it, right? So there's not only the compliance, there's not only beyond compliance. I think if you are a player, you just have to follow what your clients also want, right? So we actually have to do the work even before the actual battery passport because the client will not hire us, our services, if we are not able to do a minimum data collection and track and trace. And obviously we are interested to, as I said, we are a bit within the company, a startup, to reduce the work of data collection. So I think key is automation, right? Key is digitalize, right? So if we have to hire one person for each new data system or new sustainability data we have to report, we would be out of business at some point, right? So I think key for us is really to link systems, right? So we have, for example, started using SAP. The key is to automate, right? I think if we are able to automate and make those processes as much as possible behind the scene, then I think we'll be able to really match the requirements.
Thanks so much. So I think a call to be pragmatic and a call to actually automate and digitize what is already happening many times already in terms of data collection. I think that we're also starting to touch a bit on the point of value creation. But before to get to that, I think I want to touch on a point that I think especially Pierluca, you touched on, which is about how to support small and medium companies and enterprises, be they work on the supply chain side, providing the data, or if they are operators. Yep. And I think Thomas Knote has actually also touched on it earlier, saying how a lot of the fixed costs can be the same for these companies when it comes to the software development, but also the data management. So I think that's a very urgent one, I think, to find some answers on how to go about and how to support the small and medium businesses.
Yeah. Let me state clear that, of course, our expectation, our motorcycle industry expectation is that the impact of the battery passport for the small and medium motorcycle manufacturer will be significant, at least at the beginning. You know, when, let's say, you are a small or medium company, you have less manpower, less people, less experts that can work on that specific task. It means that also you have less people that can follow the legislation itself, all the secondary legislation, but also people that can join actively in the standardization process. So we all know, I'm happy to be here today and also to join in the previous session where there was a focus on the SME, and let's say we are, I think, very well aligned on the criticalities that this will have for the small and medium companies. So let's say we all know also which are the, let's say, the next steps for the standardization process. So end of 2025, so in the best case, first half of 2026, we can have, let's say, a final draft, a final harmonized standard. So please be faster as much as you can, be transparent as much as you can, and this will be very, very important for the SME, for the small and medium.
Thanks, Pierluca. So I think a lot of call to action and urgency here today, which is great. Niels, I would like to ask you, you already started to talk about automation, digitization. What would you see as the success factors for implementation of the battery passport overall? What are others that come to your mind?
Yeah, I think one thing was mentioned earlier. Oh, sorry. One topic was mentioned earlier today by Thomas, I think, is keep it simple, right? So the KISS principle. And I think that applies also to the smaller and medium-sized enterprise. I mean, one reason why we participated, apart from obviously being ready for compliance in this whole GBA discussion and battery pass discussion, was participating 2 years ago in a pilot. Right, so we participate in one of the pilots here from the battery pass, and yeah, I as a non-technical guy was shocked about the detail to be provided. Right, so keeping it simple and maybe have different levels also for different size of companies is something to look at. Right, so how to give? I mean, in the end. I mean, there are pros and cons to all concepts, right? But obviously, US is strong in trial and error and do legislation later, right? But sometimes here I feel we do legislation first and the supply chain of battery is not there yet, right? So we already have a very strict and complex legislation. And on the other hand, yeah, when we close the loop at the moment in Europe, we still have to ship stuff to North America and Korea because the steps, important steps to actually build the batteries in Europe is not there yet, right? So I think a step-by-step approach is something which I kind of like, adapt to the industry, where the industry is at the moment, versus having a kind of Rolls-Royce of, there's no one from Rolls-Royce here, no. Rolls-Royce of regulations and compliance versus we are still in the basic stage of setting up the industry.
Thanks. So another call, I think, for pragmatism,
Yes.
but also for an iterative process. Yes, please, Thomas.
Sorry, I have to jump in because there was a question by Pierluca. I think it's very important not to wait for the standardization JTC 24. Why? Because this is just for the system. This makes maybe 10 to 15% of the effort to realize the battery passport. The other 80 to 85% is about data handling. And here we have some good news. Patrick had explained that we developed in the battery pass project exactly a reference model how to deal with the data. And this is already applied in industry. So, and this can be applied by your association as well, because this is free of charge. This is a funded project. So you can just take it and try to deal with your association, with your small and medium-sized enterprises. So you have one investment, but application in different companies. So there is no, let me say, issue regarding, let me say, competition, because it's always the same. So I would like to encourage you to introduce the results of the Battery Pass project, because it's free of charge. You don't have to pay for something in order to apply and reduce the cost for your members.
Good to iterate. Yeah.
Just to react, I can assure that we are very well aware about the, let's say, the results of the Battery Pass Consortium. We are happy on that. And we also want more projects, not from also other countries, or from European, let's say, project on this. This is very, very well, a very, very good project for all, let's say, the motorcycle industry that was not part of the consortium. But as you said, it's free for everyone, it's accessible for everyone. So yeah, we thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. And I think another point on how to go about, act as a multiplier. Yeah, please, Patrick, go ahead.
I want to add something that is very important from my point of view. The one thing is to have the data knowledge to really know, okay, what data is needed. But the other thing that I would point out is that we really have to consolidate, at least at the SME level or at the non-automotive level, to really name it, to ask the information from the suppliers in the downstream process in the same way. Because if we really all of us, the one uses a SharePoint, the other one uses an Excel, the next one uses any sort of database, and all of them are asking the information in different granularity, then we will really, it would take us months instead of weeks to really have a database that is useful for everyone. So I would really say white papers like the ones that were published in the Battery Pass Consortium in the last years, there could be more of them. And I'm not sure if they must be really driven by such a great, a big project. It could be also smaller companies that come together and really say, okay, we all have the same problem, let's talk about it. There is something already there, we can use it, we just have to focus on how we ask for it, and then we will be pretty much faster than doing it all on our own.
Please, I think Franz wants to comment as well.
Yeah, I would really have a lot comments, but I think in sake of time. But on this, I fully agree. We are happy having this project and having also CEPAS helping on other projects, CEPAS 2, other passports to come. And now I'm wearing my ASEA hat. We also need to look at, okay, there's something that was achieved. But the position paper we recently finished, by the way, it was even, I think, last week, really shows what's next to overcome before implementation. And I think we really need to put the eye on this, and we need to somehow provoke a pre-competitive umbrella situation for collaboration, not only coming up with a BMW pilot, with a Pass Aero pilot, or with a Volvo or whomever pilot, SK pilot, but we really need to have a kind of collaborative space as the rest of the world is doing this. We have competition compliance and antitrust law, but this project of BloodPass, for example, gave us a room for a weekly, for really talking to each other, developing along the value chain position papers, and this is something we somehow need to establish for the remaining time, at least for the battery passport implementation. And okay, CEPAS 2 is taking a share of it, but I think it is not a failure having something else, something similar for ESPR and ELV as well.
Thanks a lot. I think a lot of call for using what's been done and for collaboration. There is a decision to be made, I think, by companies that, Patrick, I would like to hear you again about. And that's the decision, do I build my own battery pass or do I outsource that service? I think we heard some pitches on that, but how do you actually decide how to go about? And would love to hear about that.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie. I mean, there's one advantage when using external service providers. You are not really accountable at first. If someone asks, you can say, okay, there is someone. We are doing it already with a partner to just have a proof of concept and say, okay, it's possible, we can do it. I mean, as the basis is there, there's no big effort. But there's a certain uncertainty regarding costs. Even when saying, okay, we will put many numbers of batteries onto the market, they will be spread throughout the world, so this is a major concern that we have right now. And at least as soon as you're doing updates in any sort of communication to the batteries, this might be also a constraint when looking at really the option to do it with an external partner. So if you do it on your own, you've got your own software department that is caring about that, but then you will have to care about everything, and there is one big thing really to tackle, and this is who is authorized to access which data. And this is really like a complex task, and as already said, it's not only a software thing, it's much more than just IT. And the question is, can someone with a number of employees around 100 or 200 even handle this? In long term, it might be handled in short term, but it's something completely different if you talk about, okay, handling it 10 years and the amount of batteries that you will have to handle will raise all the time because we are producing batteries all the time.
So the answer is it depends, or
Yep.
there are clear trade-offs, and probably we still need to learn more to how to handle these trade-offs between the control, but also the maintenance or keeping it manageable
Yep.
for the battery passport operator.
And at least we will do both. So, but because at least the preparation is the same, so starting it, we will do both, work with external and prepare yourself, and then see what happens in
Keep the options.
the next year. Yeah.
Great. No, thanks so much for that. I'm looking a bit at the time. Because we are in the pragmatic part, I do want to give all of you and those online the time. I do want to ask one more question, though, before we jump into your questions, which is the important aspect of creating value. I think we've heard quite a lot about it, but now we were more pragmatic, and where is most of the urgency, how to be pragmatic, how to iterate. But I would love to also hear from you, and Franz, I would invite you actually to say some words about how do you go about now unlocking some of that value that we heard about the battery pass can create. What are the next steps in terms of doing that?
Many thanks. I'm starting with the values because I love the question. And we call it strategic pillar, but you can also call it values. It's digital, electric, and circular. These are the three values we have in our core of the strategy. And you can immediately see that that this kind of digitalization is 1/3 of our convictions, of our strategy, of our values. And maybe starting a bit earlier, since more than 10 years, we try to have a digital supply chain. And we have had contracts out to stimulate this digitalization of the supply chain. But in the end, we ended up, and the number is getting minor, but the number was more higher in the beginning. You can have your supply without data or none of both, because there are no data. And we are getting more and more into a now digital supply chain, and now we are coming back to the value of a digital supply chain. If we would have had a digital supply chain from the very first beginning, we wouldn't have needed this regulatory framework, because this would have been easy to apply. But as it didn't work without this pressure of a regulation in our back, that's where we are ended up. But as we do comply, we also use this not only to be compliant, but also to have the advantages of this digital supply chain, which means we can react very fast downstream when there's some quality issues. But we can also, as it was mentioned before from Caroline, for example, we can also have way more benefits in the sorting process. We can probably also enable the circular economy way better than without these digital passports. And we have, next to the three strategic pillars, we also work since years on a kind of tool. It's called DIVA, Digital Vehicle. In German, it's Digitale Fahrzeugakte. It's then a digital vehicle map or something like file, where we really try to have not only the upstream data, so far they are available, but also the entire life cycle, the using phase, and the downstream. And the using phase is very important because we have predictive maintenance. We do have issues for the customer. We do have also knowledge about our fleets. And by the way, the average fleet age is 24 years, which is also showing that the quality of the product is really good. And to ensure and to improve the quality, digital tools will help. Just a few words on side effects of a digital supply chain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's how to go about is to digitalize, but the value is ultimately for the customer, for a longer lifetime. So also in a way for material, saving material.
Predictive maintenance and circular economy, quality.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much. I think with that, we have about 10 minutes left, and I would love to jump into questions for the audience on anything on how to go about implementing the battery pass.
Absolutely. We already have 2 questions from the online audience. If there are more questions, now is the time to post them. Let's start with those 2. What are the consequences if an OEM is not compliant with the regulations by 2027? And what is the connection to the car homologation? Anybody with a good answer? Just a moment, we'll settle it soon.
Two views, and then please go ahead.
Yes.
So I would have loved to pass this over to Ewout, but he's gone maybe. The thing is, the connection to the homologation is not there. Homologation is one topic, but to be compliant for the rules of the market of Europe according to the battery regulation, that's another topic. So far there is, at least from my knowledge, no penalties or anything. So far it's only you cannot place your product in the market if you're not compliant. That's it.
If that's not a penalty in itself.
Yeah, but the penalty would mean you can place it and then you have to pay a fee. But this is not fully. So I would have loved to pass it over to Ewout. So.
But we also have Pierluca, please.
No, just to complement what Franz was explaining to you, no, there is no connection with the car or motorcycle moped step approval or homologation, whatever you want to call. And this is also a challenge, at least the motorcycle industry see, the applicability of some requirement to the spare part batteries that are used for the old vehicles. So vehicles that are already in the market already today, but that from February 2027 shall be compliant with the battery passport.
Mm-hmm. Now there's more questions coming in. How would you distribute the cost of battery passes to one-time installation versus regular running cost? I know somebody in the audience who feels passionately about that question. Yes, you already made the case for SMEs using it cost-free.
But you ask the wrong people, because I'm a researcher. So I have, on the one hand, I have to provide different answers. So it's at least very dependent how you made care your implementation. If you invest less in order to have manual operation, then in the operation you have a lot of cost. If you would like to have a fully automated chain, then you have normally to invest a lot into the implementation. So at least it is dependent on each other.
Tilman, you also want to add something to that point?
Yeah, and as Systemic, as an advisory firm, obviously we're not implementing it with ourselves, but we did in our value assessment study, and so I can recommend reading that. Look into that, into the cost buckets as well, not only the value and revenue or benefits side, but also the effort to make it happen. And I showed in the very first presentation a little pie chart where we did a rough appraisal, hypothetical, right? Because the systems aren't at scale in the market, of how the experts actually estimate the efforts across, typical data implementation processes, and the results was that about 90% was kind of fixed cost, which probably is fairly typical for a software project, right, where the effort can be quite substantial, but then the marginal cost to scale this up are like super minor, and so getting this done. That's the reason why it's so challenging for SME. It may be expensive upfront, but then in the long run, just operating it is probably quite affordable, and therefore, there's a return on it ultimately.
Nice. Unless you have something to add, I would move on to the next question, because there's still enough questions for everybody. What are the actual values and benefits of the battery passport for economic operators?
I mean, Tilman, you already mentioned it. Look at the white paper. Everything is described there. We really put in some efforts there. Maybe just to mention, I was in the project at the beginning, and we did that very intensively. And we had major discussions about it. And so there are many values and benefits for economic operators that you can think of in long term. In short term, we are only talking about efforts. But you can also talk about benefits in short term if you just say, I will do it better than another supplier will do it. So to be confident and to really state, okay, I'm aware of what we should do and what can be done, because with optional data elements, you can really enhance and enable others to also get better, and then we have a better European battery industry. So that might be the big picture, but at least there are some minor benefits that cannot really be calculated, but they are already there, and you just have to get them done.
Quick addition, yes?
Yeah, quick addition to that. So I can only support what Sven and Canon earlier said, the third business case you have presented. Right? So I don't want to say...
Somebody was paying attention. Yes?
Of course. No, I don't want to say I had a dream, but we had a dream as a company or as a recycler, right? That this battery passport really brings us the information we need to sort the batteries, right? To really know. So we have requests coming from all over Europe with companies who collect batteries, but they have no clue what's in the battery, right? They don't even know if it's a lithium-ion battery or not. Apart from what chemistry is in, they just say we have 20 tons of battery, you want it, right? So the dream was really that the battery passport can easily allow us to get that information already from them because they can scan and find out. And last but not least, the costs at recycling for us at least are in discharging and dismantling, right? So if we can automate that through the battery passport, that's really an amazing outlook for us as an industry.
We still have some questions online. Are there questions here in the audience? Just raise your hand, use your microphone. No, then we'll move on here. Is there a disconnect between business requests for pre-competitive collaboration and the EU sustainability competitiveness strategy? Oh, well, I'm impressed.
I think,
Could you explain, please?
This is a general question. I was calling for a pre-competitive collaboration because due to the fact that we have antitrust and competition compliance, we are not allowed to collaborate. But in these complex efforts, which are affecting the entire value chain, which are cross-functional, which are brand new, by the way, too, at least for us as Europeans, we need to have this collaboration, and we are not allowed to talk to each other from OEM to OEM without any restrictions, and therefore it's really it's a must-have for implementation, for the successful creation of the implementation of the regulation. Sorry, a lot of Asian, by the way, too. Yeah, really very important that we have this collaborative space. To have a very successful implementation, because it was said before as well, regulation needs to accelerate business, not harm.
We still have 2 minutes on my clock, so 2 questions left. During the presentation, a rough price order was $10 per product. Do you have knowledge of other price points or cost estimations? For LMT, it's high. Anybody?
I admit to not know the exact, let's say, price for product. What we know, the estimation, let's say, the impact, as said before, will be relevant, especially for the LMT. Yeah.
Okay, and a last question: how is it going to be guaranteed? Oh, how is the truth of the data going to be guaranteed? Does the passport parameters? Do the passport parameters be required to be certified?
I mean, certified not really, but at least you have to assure in your database that the change has to be done by someone who is allowed to do it. So it depends somehow on the structure of the software you use to really enable the passport. I mean, there was we're talking about blockchain technology to be used to enable this, but there is no final answer to this as far as I know. So there are many concepts. Yeah. But maybe Thomas will add something.
Franz?
Yeah, just in the end, this battery regulation will be assessed by the notifying bodies, and we will also have self-audits, which help us to be trustful and compliant. This is a simple answer on how to really come over it. And usually you use technologies to look whether there is data in a special field. And in the second step, if you are able to, you use also artificial intelligence to look whether this is a data that is accurate. But on top, assessments and the notifying bodies help us to be compliant. Yeah.
Nice. Do you want to add something? I see your finger ready on the...
I would like to postpone this question to Kerstin, because she should know this much better. But so far I know, the certification of specific data is part of the delegated act, so far I know. So it's upcoming. So this is not decided yet which data has to be certified.
I have one more question and then we're through. Does EU business agree to compete with America and China only on sustainability, or do we need to compete in other ways also? And that question I would like to leave open because I think our next speaker will slightly probably touch on that topic as well. So thanks a lot to all the panelists here. Thanks a lot, Sophie, for hosting the panel and making time to join us today.